There's a particular kind of woman a stylist notices from across a room, long before she opens her mouth, long before anyone tells them her name. They don't look at the label first. They don't even register the price. Their eye goes somewhere far more specific, somewhere most women never think to check. It happens in less than 2 seconds. A trained eye scans the body the way a director scans a frame, searching for friction, for places where the fabric is working too hard, straining, pulling, fighting against the body underneath it. And in that brief scan, they already know everything they need to know about how this woman dresses, how she shops, and how much attention she pays to the details no one else sees. This detail has a name in the industry, though almost no one outside it has ever heard the term. Stylists call it reading for tension. And once someone explains it, an elegant woman starts seeing it everywhere, on the street, in meetings, in every photograph of a woman who simply looks rich without trying. There are 4 places on the body where tension reveals itself first. For checkpoints a trained eye visits in order every single time. Most women never adjust for a single one of them. The women who look effortlessly put together, the ones who seem to have some quiet, inherited sense of style, they've corrected all 4, usually without ever using that language for it. The first checkpoint is the button line, the row of buttons running down the front of a shirt or blazer, directly across the bust and stomach. Picture 2 women at the same dinner. Both are wearing a crisp white shirt. One sits down, reaches for her glass, and the shirt gaps slightly between the buttons, just enough to show a flash of skin or fabric underneath. The other sits, reaches, leans forward to laugh at something, and the line stays closed, flat, undisturbed. Nobody at that table could explain why, but every eye in the room drifts toward the second woman when she speaks. The secret sits in 3 specific details. First, the shirt needs at least ½ an inch of ease across the bust. Not tight, not loose, simply room enough that the fabric isn't being asked to stretch to meet itself. Second, the buttons themselves should sit slightly larger and more substantial than the thin, flat ones found on fast fashion. A heavier button holds its line under movement instead of straining the buttonhole. Third, and this is the one almost nobody checks, sit down in the shirt before buying it. Standing in front of a mirror tells a woman nothing about how a shirt behaves once her body actually moves. In practice, this looks like buying a crisp poplin shirt 1 size larger through the bust than instinct suggests, then having it tailored in at the waist. The fit changes everywhere except exactly where tension would show. The social result is almost unfair in how immediate it is. People read a closed button line as composure. They read a gaping one as carelessness, even when the woman wearing it is brilliant, accomplished, completely put together in every other way. The body doesn't know the difference between a stressed seam and a stressed woman. It simply reports tension either way. And the button line is only the first checkpoint. The second one is smaller, quieter, and almost nobody notices they're failing it until it's pointed out. The second checkpoint lives at the shoulder seam, the exact point where the sleeve meets the body of a jacket, blazer, or coat. Think of 2 women wearing what is, on paper, the identical blazer. One bought it off the rack and never touched it again. The other had the shoulder seam adjusted by ½ an inch, nothing more. On the first woman, the seam sits a touch too wide, creating a small fold of extra fabric that catches light strangely every time she lifts her arm. On the second, the seam meets the edge of her shoulder precisely, and the entire jacket appears to have been made for her, even though it came from the very same rack. This is the detail that separates a blazer that looks borrowed from one that looks owned. The row built an entire reputation on shoulders this precise, clean, architectural, never a centimeter of extra fabric pretending to be structure. The 3 specifics here matter more than almost anything else in a wardrobe. First, the seam should sit at the very edge of the shoulder bone, not past it. Past it reads as borrowed from a man's closet. Before it reads as too small. Second, the sleeve should hang straight down from that point without a single horizontal fold across the upper arm. A fold there means the shoulder is fighting the body. Third, this is worth paying a tailor for, even on an inexpensive blazer. It's a 15-minute adjustment that changes how the entire garment reads, and it costs far less than most women assume. A camel coat with the shoulder seam corrected does something almost theatrical to posture. The body straightens slightly without trying, the way a woman's spine seems to lengthen the moment she puts on something that actually fits her. People don't compliment a perfect shoulder seam directly. Nobody walks up and says her shoulders look architecturally precise. But they say things like she carries herself so well, she just has presence, she seems so put together. They're describing the shoulder seam. They simply don't know it. There's a third checkpoint, and it's the one that most quietly ages or rejuvenates an entire outfit, depending on which way it goes. The third checkpoint is the waistband on trousers, skirts, or the line where a dress meets the body just above the hip. Two women, same restaurant, same week. One is wearing tailored trousers that, by the time dessert arrives, have left a visible line and a slight overhang at the waist, what stylists privately call the muffin line, though never to a client's face. The other is wearing trousers in the exact same size, and 3 hours later, nothing has shifted. No line, no overhang, nothing readable through the fabric of her blouse. The difference is never the size on the label. It's the construction. The first specific is a waistband with even an inch of stretch woven invisibly into otherwise structured fabric. A small percentage of elastane blended into wool or cotton twill, undetectable by sight, completely detectable by comfort after the second course. The second is a curved waistband rather than a straight one, cut to actually follow the curve of a hip and waist instead of forcing the body into a straight line it was never going to hold all evening. The third is sizing for the waist, not the hip, and having a tailor take in the hip slightly if needed. Most women do the opposite instinctively, and it's exactly backward. Camel trousers with a properly curved, slightly eased waistband, worn with a silk blouse loosely tucked, create that particular kind of ease that reads as old money rather than tired. Nothing fights the body. Nothing needs adjusting under the table. This is the checkpoint that decides whether an outfit still looks composed at the end of a long day, or whether it's quietly come undone by the time the check arrives. Grace Kelly was famously photographed at the end of long evenings looking exactly as pressed as she did at the start. That wasn't restraint. That was construction. One checkpoint remains, and it's the one that, once explained, a woman will never be able to unsee again, not on herself, not on anyone else. The fourth and final checkpoint is the hem, specifically what it does when a woman walks, not when she stands still. Most women only ever evaluate a hem in front of a mirror, standing motionless. But almost nothing in life happens while standing motionless. Picture two women crossing the same lobby. One takes a step and her trouser hem swings forward, then snaps back against her ankle, slightly stiff, slightly fighting the motion. The other takes a step and her hem simply follows the leg, a half second behind, the way water follows a hand moving through it. The first specific is weight. A hem needs enough fabric weight to fall with gravity rather than fight it. Heavy linen, wool with real density, silk with a substantial drape, never thin polyester pretending to be any of those things. The second is a clean single fold with no visible stitching pulling the fabric tight, since a tight hem stitch creates exactly the kind of resistance that shows up the instant a woman moves. The third is length itself. A hem that breaks at the narrowest point of the leg, whether that's the ankle bone or just below the knee, because anywhere else creates visual interruption exactly where the eye is already moving. A wide leg trouser in a substantial wool crepe, hemmed to break precisely at the ankle bone, does something almost cinematic with every single step. It's the detail Milanese tailors obsess over, and the detail that makes ready-to-wear from Loro Piana feel so distinctly different from something picked up in a hurry. This is the checkpoint people notice without consciously noticing it. They couldn't describe the hem if asked, but they'd say there was something about the way she walked into the room. 4 checkpoints: button line, shoulder seam, waistband, hem. None of them require a single expensive item. All of them require attention most women have simply never been taught to pay. The 50, that attention isn't vanity. It's mastery. A woman in her 20s reaches for trends because she hasn't yet learned what actually works on a body that's lived a little. A woman who has spent decades watching, noticing, adjusting, she's earned the right to skip the trends entirely and go straight for what's correct. That's not a consolation. That's an advantage almost nobody mentions out loud. Elegance was never about the price tag stitched inside the collar. It was always about whether the fabric and the body were finally, quietly, in agreement. So look at the 4 checkpoints again: the button line, the shoulder seam, the waistband, the hem, and tell me which one is fighting back the hardest in this closet right now. Subscribe for more of these decoded details, made specifically for women who'd rather know the real rule than guess at it forever.